One number, 1 year, 22,300,000,000 euros. That's how much money the fourth largest car company on the planet lost in a single year. Not a rough quarter, not a dip in the numbers. A full year net loss of 22.3 billion euros in 2025, the first annual loss in the company's entire history. 12 months earlier, the same company had posted a profit of 5.5 billion euros. The company's name is Stellantis, and even if that name means nothing to you, its children absolutely do. Fiat, Peugeot, Vauxhall, Citroën, Jeep, Alfa Romeo, Maserati, Chrysler, Lancia, DS. 14 brands, some of them over a century old, all sitting under one corporate roof. And that roof just collapsed with one of the worst losses the auto industry has ever recorded. This is the story of how an empire built to dominate the global car business tore itself apart in under 5 years. How a plan that looked brilliant on paper quietly gutted 14 brands from the inside, drove customers away, forced out the man who built it, and left behind a 22 billion euro hole. Some of the names caught in the wreckage are genuine legends. That's what turns this from a bad earnings report into something closer to a tragedy. The empire that was supposed to rule the world. To understand how far this fell, you have to understand what Stellantis was actually built to be. In 2021, two struggling car giants merged into one. On one side, the French group PSA, which owned Peugeot, Citroën, Vauxhall, and Opel. On the other, Fiat Chrysler, bringing along Fiat, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Alfa Romeo, Lancia, and Maserati. Put them together, and overnight, you had one of the largest automakers on Earth. 14 brands, a presence on nearly every continent, and a name almost nobody outside the industry had heard of. The man behind the deal was Carlos Tavares, a Portuguese executive known across the industry as its most ruthless cost cutter, the same man who had already dragged Peugeot back from the edge of collapse once before. His pitch was simple and honestly hard to argue with on a spreadsheet. Building a car from scratch is brutally expensive. A new platform alone can cost billions. So why let 14 separate brands each spend billions engineering their own version of the same thing? Merge the platforms, share the engines, cut the duplication, build a company lean and massive enough to go toe-to-toe with Volkswagen and Toyota. And for a while, it worked exactly the way Tavares promised. The cost-cutting produced record profits and industry-leading margins, and Tavares was celebrated as one of the sharpest operators in the business. But there was rot built into the plan from day one, the same rot that's now hollowed the company out. When you force 14 brands onto the same platforms, the same engines, the same parts bins, you save an enormous amount of money. You also strip away the exact thing that made each of those brands worth buying in the first place. An Alfa Romeo is supposed to feel nothing like a Vauxhall. A Maserati is supposed to feel like nothing else on the road. But when they're all built from the same shared components as a budget Peugeot, the personality drains out of the car. What's left is just a badge. And a badge, as Stellantis is now finding out the hard way, is not enough to keep customers coming back. The bet that broke the company. Then came the wager that actually broke everything: electric vehicles. Tavares committed Stellantis to an aggressive all-in electric strategy, pouring billions into EV platforms, battery supply deals, and new production capacity, betting that demand would explode fast enough to justify the spend. It was the exact same bet Volkswagen made, the exact same bet Porsche made, and it's gone wrong for all three companies in nearly the same way. Demand simply didn't show up at the pace anyone gambled on, especially in the US, where political sentiment turned hard against EVs faster than the industry expected. Stellantis had built a future its own customers weren't ready to buy yet. And while the company was chasing that future, the present quietly started falling apart. By 2024, the cracks were impossible to hide. Profits collapsed. In America, dealers effectively staged a revolt, sending a furious open letter accusing leadership of strangling the brands with arrogance and short-term greed, pushing prices so high that cars simply sat unsold on the lot. The same cost-cutting that had made Tavares a hero had gone too far, and the quality, the dealer network, and the customers were the ones absorbing the damage. The board had seen enough. In December 2024, Carlos Tavares was forced out. And here's the detail that tells you how fast this was unraveling. He was pushed out over the performance of a year that still ended in profit, 5.5 billion euros in the black. The board wasn't reacting to a loss. They were reacting to what they could already see coming: the reckoning. What came next landed in February 2026. A new chief executive, Antonio Filosa, had taken over in the summer of 2025, and his job was to lay the mess out honestly instead of dressing it up. When the full year 2025 results were finally published, the scale of the disaster became public. A net loss of 22.3 billion euros, the worst in the company's history. The cause was more than 25 billion euros in write-downs, much of it the value of that failed electric strategy being erased off the books in one motion. A company that had posted nearly 4 billion euros in operating profit the year before swung into an operating loss. Revenue slid to around 153 billion euros, and cash started flowing out of the business by the billions instead of in. On top of all of that, Stellantis is now facing a tariff bill running well past €1 billion over the coming year as trade barriers bite into what it sells in America. To protect what was left of its balance sheet, the company suspended its 2026 dividend entirely and went to the bond markets to borrow up to €5 billion just to keep itself steady. Sit with that for a second. One of the largest car companies on earth, owner of 14 historic brands, lost 22 billion euros in a single year, canceled its dividend, and had to go borrow money to hold its own balance sheet together. That isn't a bad year. That's a company in genuine crisis. But the headline loss, as staggering as it is, isn't really the story. The real story is what happened to the brands themselves along the way. So let's walk through the wreckage, one legendary name at a time. Maserati, the crown jewel, losing its shine. Start with Maserati, supposed to be the group's answer to Ferrari, the embodiment of Italian speed and luxury. Under Stellantis, Maserati's sales have fallen off a cliff, and the brand has been steadily bleeding cash. In response, Stellantis pulled back hard on investment and canceled the electric future that was supposed to carry the brand forward. A name that should be the crown jewel of the entire group has instead become a liability nobody quite knows what to do with. When your most glamorous brand is hemorrhaging money and you're canceling its future rather than funding it, that tells you everything about how deep the problem runs. Alfa Romeo, a century of passion reduced to a reliability warning. Then there's Alfa Romeo, a century of racing pedigree, a name that's supposed to make your pulse pick up. Under Stellantis, Alfa has instead become shorthand for unreliability, landing near the very bottom of independent dependability studies, second worst of any brand in one major survey. Even the small indignities keep piling up. When Alfa launched a new compact model called the Milano, the Italian government objected that a car named after Milan wasn't actually built in Italy, forcing an embarrassing last-minute rename before launch. A proud, historic mark, reduced to building unreliable cars on shared platforms, then getting dragged into a public fight over what it's even allowed to call them. Lancia, a ghost of what it used to be. Lancia's story is quieter and maybe sadder for it. Once one of the most innovative and admired car manufacturers in the world, a brand that won rally championships and built genuine automotive icons, Lancia today has been reduced to selling essentially a single model, kept alive on life support more as a name on paper than an actual functioning car company. The group keeps promising a revival. The reality right now is a once great name hanging on by a thread. DS Automobiles trying to buy prestige. DS Automobiles tells a different kind of failure. This was Stellantis attempting to manufacture a premium French brand from scratch, an answer to Audi and BMW, built on the exact same underpinnings as an ordinary Citroën, but sold at a luxury price. Buyers saw through it immediately. DS sells in tiny numbers across Europe, and its cars depreciate, alarmingly, because almost nobody wants one used. DS stands as proof that prestige can't simply be conjured out of a badge and a price tag. A premium brand only works if people actually believe in it, and hardly anyone ever believed in DS, Chrysler, and Dodge, American icons left to wither. Across the Atlantic, Chrysler's dying in slow motion. Once a genuine pillar of the American car industry, it's been starved of investment for years and is now down to essentially one aging model, left to fade while the group's attention and money went elsewhere. Dodge suffered a different version of the same problem, pushed hard toward an electric future its core fan base never asked for, alienating the exact buyers who love the noise and the fury of a muscle car, and forcing an awkward, belated scramble back toward the combustion engines that never should have been taken off the table in the first place. The engine that became a scandal. Then there are the volume brands, the ones actually paying the group's bills, and they're carrying the deepest scandal of all. Peugeot, Citroën, Vauxhall, Opel, and DS all share a small 3-cylinder petrol engine called the PureTech, one of the most widely fitted engines across Europe over the past decade. When it launched, it collected Engine of the Year awards. Today, it's become one of the great engineering scandals of modern motoring. The problem is the timing belt, which on this engine sits submerged inside the engine oil. As the belt ages, it disintegrates, and rubber debris gets dragged through the engine, clogging the oil pump pickup and starving the engine of lubrication until it seizes completely. These failures haven't been rare or minor. Owners across Europe have been left with wrecked engines and repair bills worth more than the car itself, often on vehicles only a few years old. The backlash was severe enough to trigger legal action in France and force Stellantis into extending warranties on the engine just to contain the fallout. Think about what that actually means. A company already under severe financial pressure, bleeding billions, is now also on the hook for replacing engines in cars it already sold, because a cost-saving design decision at the heart of its best-selling models is quietly destroying itself. An award-winning engine that turned into a liability is about as clean a symbol as you'll find for everything that went wrong here. Vauxhall, Opel, and Fiat cutting into the roots. Vauxhall and Opel carry their own wound. As losses mounted, Stellantis moved to shut down a historic British plant, putting jobs on the line and making it very clear where loyal, long-standing operations sit on the priority list once the accountants take control. A brand woven into British motoring history, treated as a line item to be trimmed. And Fiat, the actual founding heart of the whole empire, the brand that put Italy on wheels and gave the world the original 500, has been hollowed out too. Its lineup has shrunk to a small handful of models. The electric 500, supposed to be the brand's bright new future, was priced high enough and sold slowly enough that production was repeatedly paused. A brand that once dominated Italy and sold across all of Europe is now running largely on nostalgia. When even the company's own namesake brand is struggling to stay relevant, that tells you how deep the decay actually goes. One machine, 14 souls. Step back, and the pattern across all 14 brands is impossible to miss. Each one had its own history, its own personality, its own reason to exist, and each one got fed into the same cost-cutting machine. The machine squeezed out expenses, and along with them, character. Maserati's glamour, Alfa's passion, Lancia's innovation, Chrysler's heritage. All of it sacrificed to a spreadsheet. And the customers, who could feel the difference even if they couldn't always name it, started quietly walking away. The badges stayed exactly where they were. The magic didn't. This isn't just a Stellantis problem. Here's the part that should worry the rest of the industry, because Stellantis isn't alone in this. The same disease is spreading through several of its biggest rivals. Volkswagen Group made an almost identical bet, merging its brands onto shared platforms and gambling heavily on an electric future that arrived slower than planned, and it's bleeding too. Porsche, historically the most profitable luxury automaker in the world, made the same electric bet and watched its own profits collapse. The pattern keeps repeating because the underlying thinking was the same everywhere. Cut costs by sharing everything. Chase an electric future faster than customers were actually ready to move. And trust that the badge alone would carry the brand through. Everywhere this has been tried at scale, it's ended the same way. Lost character, lost trust, and lost billions. Stellantis just happens to be the most extreme version of it because it tried to run the same experiment across 14 brands simultaneously. The bigger the empire, the harder the fall. Tavares set out to build the most efficient car company on Earth. Taken to its logical extreme, that efficiency turned into a slow, quiet way of destroying everything customers actually valued about these cars. They got cheaper to build and worse to own. The brands looked more profitable on paper while becoming more hollow underneath. And eventually, the accounts caught up to the truth in the shape of a €22 billion hole. Can any of this actually be rebuilt? So where does that leave Stellantis now? New leadership is trying to dig its way out, and the strategy has essentially reversed course. Instead of forcing every brand toward electric on the same timeline, the new message is flexibility, keeping petrol, hybrid, and electric options alive across the lineup. The company is leaning hard on its strongest performers, Jeep and Ram in America, to help drag the rest of the group back toward profit. There are early, cautious signs of stabilization in the back half of the year, modest revenue growth, a steadier cash position, and leadership is talking about closing old gaps and returning to sustainable growth. Maybe it works. Companies have clawed their way back from worse positions before, but look at the actual scale of what needs repairing. 14 brands, several of them gutted of the qualities that made them worth owning. A volume engine that turned into a legal scandal. A premium brand nobody believes in, a luxury brand still bleeding cash, a legendary name surviving on a single model, an American icon left to fade, a 22 billion euro hole in the accounts, a canceled dividend, borrowed money propping up the balance sheet. You don't fix all of that with one decent half year and an optimistic press release. You fix it brand by brand, customer by customer, and that takes years, assuming it can be done at all. Here's the hard truth sitting at the center of this whole story. Stellantis wasn't taken down by Toyota. It wasn't taken down by Chinese competition or a recession. It was built on a single idea that you could merge 14 proud, distinct brands, strip away everything that made them different in order to save money, and customers simply wouldn't notice. They noticed. They noticed the shared parts, the vanished personality, the cost-cut quality, the engine that quietly destroys itself, and one by one they walked away until the fourth largest car company in the world was staring down the biggest loss in its history. The names will almost certainly survive on paper. Fiat, Peugeot, Alfa, Maserati, badges that valuable don't just get thrown away. Whether they ever feel like the cars they used to be again, whether there's any soul left to rescue after years inside the machine, is the real question hanging over this entire empire. And right now, not even the people running it can answer that with any real confidence.